So many years ago when I was a kid, I used to work for this catering business. We did all kinds of parties, weddings, high-end parties, things of that nature. They used to make this one chicken dish that everybody would request, which was basically stuffed with some bell peppers and some cheese. We're gonna kick that up a notch. Today we're gonna make a prosciutto stuffed chicken roulade. We're gonna stuff it with prosciutto, spinach, shallots, garlic. We're gonna bread it up, fry it, and we're gonna make an orange Burblanc sauce that's gonna set this off. Let's get into it. Here we go. So the first thing we need to do is work on our filling for our roulade. It needs to cool slightly before we stuff it, so we're going to do this first. We're going to start by finely dicing one shallot, slice the shallot in half, cut halfway vertically and halfway horizontally, and that'll get us the perfect dice we need for our filling. Place the diced shallot in a bowl and set aside. We're also going to reserve a little bit for when we go to sauté our asparagus. Next, we're going to chop up some garlic. We need about 4 cloves for this recipe. We're also going to reserve a little bit for our asparagus as well. Crush the garlic cloves with the side of your knife and peel the skin off. Start by thinly slicing the garlic and then mince as finely as you can with your knife. Place the garlic in a bowl and set aside until we're ready to use it. Next, we're going to set 1 to 2 cups of spinach aside and have it ready to go for our filling. I like to use baby spinach. You can normally find this at the grocery store already washed and ready to go. The last thing we need to chop up for this recipe is a little bit of parsley. We're going to add some to our orange Burblanc sauce and use some as garnish when we go to plate. We're using curly parsley. Go ahead and remove the leaf from the stem and chop up nice and fine. Now that everything's ready to go, let's start cooking our filling. In a medium pan on medium heat, we're going to add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once the oil is hot, add your diced shallot and saute until translucent, usually around 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to season with a little bit of salt to help bring the moisture out of the shallots. If you don't have shallots, you can just use a regular sweet onion, dice it up nice and fine just like we did the shallot, and add that instead. Next, we're going to add 3 cloves of minced garlic. Saute the garlic for about 1 minute until fragrant. So at this point, we're going to turn off the heat and add our spinach. We're going to let the residual heat in the pan wilt our spinach slightly and season with a little bit of salt and pepper. Once the spinach is wilted, we're going to set this aside and let it cook completely or just enough where we can handle it with our hands. Once the filling looks just like this, you'll know it's ready to go. Now let's move on to making our chicken roulade. We're going to take 1 chicken breast, lay it on the cutting board, and carefully cut into it halfway horizontally. Butterfly the chicken until it's completely flat and opened up like a book. Lay the butterflied chicken breast back on the cutting board and cover with a piece of plastic wrap. Next, with a meat mallet, pound the chicken until it's a 1/4 inch thin. Make sure to use the flat side of the mallet and not the side with the teeth. Try not to tear the chicken. A little bit is okay, you can cover it up with the breading, but if you tear it too much, you're going to have to start with a different piece of chicken. Season the chicken with a little bit of salt and pepper, and now we're ready to stuff. First, we're going to start with a few ounces of high-quality prosciutto. You can find this at most grocery stores. Try and purchase a brand that has a piece of paper in between each slice. It makes it a little easier to handle when you're trying to get them apart. Lay an even layer of the prosciutto on top of the chicken breast, and then we're going to add a generous amount of our spinach, shallot, and garlic filling. Same as the prosciutto, we're going to add a nice even layer of the filling across the chicken breast. Now we need something to help bind all this together. We're going to use some mozzarella cheese, add an even layer of your mozzarella, and if you don't want to use mozzarella, you can use provolone or a combination of provolone and parmesan, whatever you like. We're going to gently roll up our chicken roulade, grab the end and roll it over kind of like you're folding a burrito. Gently pull it in tight, fold the sides in as best you can, and roll it over. Once it's nice and tight, we're going to place it on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, then place it in the freezer for around 20 minutes to firm up. This is going to make it easier to bread later on. While the chicken roulade is firming up, we're going to get our breading station together. First, we're going to add a little bit of flour to a plate or wide bowl and season with a little bit of salt and pepper, then mix and set aside. For the egg wash, we're going to take 1 medium-sized container, crack 2 to 3 large eggs into the bowl, add a splash of water, and whisk until homogeneous. Next, we need to season our breadcrumbs. Now, some breadcrumbs come seasoned, some don't. This is my standard breadcrumb seasoning that I pretty much use every time. This will add a ton of flavor to the breadcrumbs if they're not already seasoned. We're using cornflake breadcrumbs. They get the chicken super crispy. They have a slight sweetness to them. I highly recommend you give it a try. To the breadcrumbs, we're going to add about a tablespoon or 2 of garlic powder, onion powder, Italian seasoning, and a teaspoon of red pepper flake. Season with a heavy pinch of salt and black pepper. Mix the breadcrumbs up with your hands until everything's fully incorporated. Set the breadcrumbs aside, and now we have our breading station ready to go. Our chicken has been in the fridge for around 20 minutes, so we're going to move on to breading our roulade. Make sure the chicken is nice and firm. If it's not firm enough, place it back in the fridge for a few minutes to firm up before breading. Cover the roulade in your seasoned flour, making sure to knock off the excess. Go right into the egg wash, cover completely, and make sure to let the excess egg drip off of the chicken. Next, go right into the breadcrumbs, completely cover the chicken in the breading, press it in gently, and make sure there's no bald spots. Now that our chicken is breaded, we're going to place it back in the fridge for a few minutes while we get our oil hot. In a cast iron pan or deep fryer, heat some vegetable oil to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the chicken seam side down into the oil. Fry the chicken until golden brown on all sides. This should roughly take around 2 minutes a side. Try not to get the chicken too brown, it's going to go in the oven to finish cooking anyway. We just want to fry it enough to get it nice and crispy. Once the chicken is golden brown on all sides, place it on a baking sheet lined with parchment paper on top of a wire rack. Bake in the oven set to 375 degrees for around 15 to 20 minutes. So while our chicken is in the oven, we can work on making our orange Burblanc sauce. In a medium saucepan on medium heat, combine 1/4 cup of dry white wine and 1/2 cup of orange juice. Stir all that together and let it reduce by half. This step usually takes around 15 minutes to reduce. Once the orange juice and the wine have reduced by half, we're going to add 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Turn the heat to low and reduce by half. I know this sounds like quite a process, but trust me, it's worth it. Once the sauce is reduced, turn off the heat, add a big pinch of parsley, and gently melt 3 tablespoons of butter into the sauce. Give it a taste and season with salt and pepper to your liking. So here's a pro tip. You want to melt the butter just before you're ready to eat and make sure the sauce stays warm before you serve it. So our chicken is almost done. Let's make a quick side of asparagus. In a small sized pot, bring about 1 quart of water to a simmer. Add the asparagus and blanch for around 3 to 4 minutes. Remove the asparagus from the pot and immediately into some ice water. This is going to stop the cooking process, so when you go to sauté, you don't overcook your asparagus. Next, in a medium-sized pan on medium heat, add some olive oil and your shallot. Sauté for a few minutes, then add 1 clove of minced garlic. Once the garlic is fragrant, add your asparagus to the pan. Season the asparagus with salt and pepper and sauté for around 5 minutes or until the asparagus is tender. Now let's get ready to slice up our chicken. Our chicken is cooked to 165 degrees internally. Let it rest for about 5 to 10 minutes, then carefully slice into 1-inch pieces. If you don't let your chicken roulade rest, you're going to risk your filling falling out when you go to slice it, and it won't look as pretty on the plate. Now we're ready to plate this dish up. We're going to add a few pieces of our chicken onto the plate, add a few asparagus spears in between the chicken, then add a generous amount of our orange Burblanc sauce on top. Keeping in mind you can also just serve the sauce on the side. We're going to optionally garnish with some parsley and microgreens, and enjoy. So there you have it, we made our stuffed chicken roulade. I highly recommend you guys try this, maybe at an at-home date night, or if you want to impress your guests at a party. And you can always cook this in advance. When I worked for the catering business, we would make 50 to 100 of these things, pop them in the walk-in, and then when we're ready to serve them, we take them out, fry them, throw them in the oven, and serve it up. So it's very easy to do in advance. I highly recommend you guys try it. The orange Burblanc sauce has just the right amount of citrus flavor, pairs well with the prosciutto, and then you got that nice crispy breading. Leave me a comment below, let me know what you want to see me cook next. If you enjoyed this video or you learned something, give us a like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.